Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to Real Estate with Ryan. So excited to be with you on an amazing weekend. Talking our favorite topic, a little real estate, a little East Tennessee housing market. Got a great show for you. Hope you're doing well. Busy weekend. Coming off a Memorial Day break, a little vacation. Hope everybody had an amazing week. I know we did. We got a little R&R, relaxation. And housing market is not stopped. Kiddos are out of school. Graduations, summer is upon us. And then the housing market, it is peaking, moving. A lot of things going on in the housing market. We'll cover so much today. Got a great show for you, covering a couple little things. I think most important, the real reason why people are still moving. Obviously, you think the housing market, the stats, what's going on. Reports last month in April that we're down 11% over year. But that being said, still a lot of people that are moving and making that move. And so we'll talk about that, the real reason behind moving right now, and the truth about affordability today. I think it's a big topic that we'll talk about. Second half, we've got a great show for our veterans just coming out of Memorial Day. We'll talk about if you're purchasing a home or using your VA eligibility, some things and tips that maybe you didn't know, or just remind you, get you into home ownership. VA loan is one of our best loans out there, especially for our veterans, proud veterans that have served proudly for our country. So we thank you and appreciate you guys for all you've done for our country. That's past, present, and future, okay? All right, we'll get on our show, but before we get going, as always, we got some congrats, new listings, active, sold, it's been busy. Congrats on a new listing out in 310 Holyfield Drive in Jacksboro, coming on the market next week, so you should see that here towards the end of the week. New listing coming up in Alcoa and Maryville, 830 Foch Street. Should be next week as well. Congrats to our great sellers over in Strawberry Plains Pike in Knoxville, 5012, under contract in just a short period of time. Great builder, 2414 Grandview Court in Kingston. Beautiful condos, by the way, out there. We only have one left. Main level, it's absolutely stunning. Waterfront views. Make sure you check that out. That was one of our last that we have pending. So our great builder there. And so we got one more that's pending and one that's active. So get it before it changes and goes. 1770 Mount Pleasant Road. Congrats, new seller and purchaser on that one. Not only did they sell their property in Knoxville, but moved out to Talbot. And super proud of them for that move. It was, as everything in today's market, never anything easy, right? It was at closing. We were getting things done. And kind of segue into the housing market and in this show, what is going on in the market right now? And our great sellers, the Merritts, sold theirs, purchased theirs on the same day. So I have a lot of people say, Ryan, how do you do that? How do you not only sell one day and buy the next day or the same day? And you say, we do that all the time, but the most important thing is it's never easy, right? It's never easy. And it can be stressful in today's housing market. Everything's stressful. When the economy's perfect, everything's humming. But buying or selling, no matter whether the market's up or down, can be stressful. And, with the challenges in the market and different things, we've had our challenges in getting their home sold and reselling it and selling it again and then finding something for them that's in the budget range that they want to be at. Affordability, that's what the key is. See, I'm not going to sell mine, Ryan, and then purchase the other one. So what we're seeing is the little things that come involved. And so with our Merritts, that we were great sellers that were patient with us and really appreciate them. And our team did a wonderful job helping them. And I'm not just saying that, they said that as well, but it was all group, all hands-on effort to help make that a successful move. And that's what it takes in great business, life, teamwork. That's why I've got my kids early on into sports and activities. I think sports teaches you a lot about teamwork and what it takes. I know it's taught me to run a business and manage multiple companies, and it's teamwork. And to sell a home in today's market, you've got to have great teamwork and a team that cares about what you're doing and moving forward. But some of the things that my title company over at Genesis was talking about was it's the little things that are coming up into closings now. May is here. It's officially gone. June's right around the corner. And it's the little things where the lender has documents that they can't get together, and everybody's stressed and putting all the closings on one day, right? Taxes. I did a show last week. I hope you had a chance to listen to that. If you didn't have a chance to listen to it, Knox County raising the assessments, right, on your taxes. How does that affect your value? Well, all these things come into play, but now you're seeing that now. The rule of thumb is, well, Ryan, we're going to stay the status quo, and we're probably going to be kind of equalization rate out. But you and I both know, we've been around for a while. We're watching what's going on in the housing market. We're watching what's going on in the economy, gas prices, food. All that kind of comes into play of what we're doing and how we're experiencing the consumers are if you're going to buy or sell or doing anything in today's housing market. It doesn't come just to housing, but autos, furniture, you name it, any kind of big purchases that are out there, people are hesitant. And so some of those things that we're dealing with and causing is, guess what? Last minute assessments. The assessments that just rolled out, not just for Knox County, Sevier County, Loudoun County, a lot of different counties out here where the assessments have now been what? Potentially changed. The appraised value is higher. And what's happening now? A lot of lenders are pumping the brakes. We got to redo the assessments. We got to make sure we have the tax correct. In a lot of cases, you may not want to hear this, but the assessments that were done 2 or 3 months ago, guess what? Now are coming to due. And so now, what was already a tight budget range, now we have to go back into underwriting, and we didn't factor the $200,000 assessment change on the taxes. So it's becoming more challenging. And so then the lenders are having to go, just happened today in the morning, literally 8 o'clock at night, got an email and said, hey, well, we weren't aware of the taxes, and we have to go back through underwriting, and the computer didn't approve it, but don't worry, we're going to have to go through a manual. And so they were able to get it done, but that is the state of our economy right now and where we're at and how to navigate that. So all these things are coming on top of where interest rates, wars, and different things that we're facing. So, it's never easy out there. That's why 100%, if you're thinking about buying or selling, you've got to team up with the right team. I think we're a good choice, but there's a lot of great colleagues that I work with out there, a lot of great teamwork. Find a great agent that you can work for. We'd love to interview for the job, but they can walk you through this process because we talk about it. It's never easy. It's always going to be stressful, and having a great team on your side makes the difference. Let's talk a little bit about the real reason why people are moving now. We'll talk about affordability in the second half, but why people are moving. Waiting doesn't usually fix the decision that you're going to make or why. So many people in the housing market today want to sell, but they're not going to sell for a combination of reasons. That conversation I was having today is affordability comes into play. Buyers are on the fence on a lot of different moves and a lot of different options. There'd be so many more homes on the market and inventory, but the challenge is this. Go in the housing market in that range between 400,000 and 800,000. I'm going to sell my home, Ryan, but where am I going to go? I need some more land. I need some more space. We're in Hardin Valley. My wife wants some land. Does anybody know where there's some land for sale? Maybe some acreage you want to sell us? We'll definitely buy it. Depends the price, of course, right? Smart buyer, right? It depends on the price. But land, acreage, getting out of HOA, having an opportunity to maybe relocate to a certain school district, all these things come into play. But when you go out there and look at the replacement cost of what it costs, a lot of people say, I just can't afford it. It doesn't make sense for me to leave my home here of 25 to 3,000 square foot and only increase maybe the same or less to have lesser backyard, right? And then I'm paying $200,000 more for the sales price. So on top of rates being 6 and some change. So all those things come into affordability. But keep in mind at the same time, just because rates are up doesn't mean that people aren't moving. The National Association of Realtors show 1 in 5 buyers said they would make a home purchase no matter what the market. The typical cycle is every 5 to 7 years. So if you ever see lenders and they have that 5 to 7 year adjustable, why do you think that is? Is the bank being kind to you? No. They know because most people are going to sell within 5 to 7 years. Now, some people sell a home a couple times in their lifetime, but in 5 or 7 years, people change. You got more kids, need more space, job relocation. These things come into play. The typical 2 years, 22.5 million people experience big life changes every 2 years. And that's hard to deal with. But some of that leads to divorces, marriages, deaths. some kind of trauma, and then some births, And so, life does not stand still. A lot of people are getting new jobs, relocating for good things. A lot of people are coming to our area. Families downsize, only in retirement, and they want to live in a different neighborhood. So waiting is very hard for a lot of people. And we're already telling everybody as we're segueing to the second half, but sometimes you just can't wait. It doesn't make sense. You always have that option to refi later. We'll be right back with the second half of Real Estate with Ryan. Stay tuned.
When speed matters, every second counts.
Wow, that was fast.
In real estate, speed is an advantage.
In football, speed is crucial.
In softball, speed is game-changing.
If you want your home sold fast,
Trust Ryan Coleman and his team at Hometown Realty for fast results.
Thanks, guys. Go Big Orange.
Hometown Realty is East Tennessee's #1 real estate group and a proud sponsor of the Vols.
I'm Ryan Coleman with Hometown Realty. The real estate market's changing every day. You need to know your home's value in today's market. Text your home address to 290-2290 for an instant, no obligation home evaluation. That's 865-290-2290. And remember, when you're ready to sell, we have a guaranteed sale program to get you in your next home stress-free. Trust your hometown experts. We've helped thousands of people just like you. All right, we're back at it, second half, Real Estate with Ryan. I mean, we're firing quick on a weekend. I hope you're enjoying your weekend. And thank you for staying tuned. If you're tuning in for the first time, my name is Ryan Coleman, owner, founder of Hometown Realty, and we do this show, Real Estate with Ryan, almost going on 10 years. It's hard to believe. And we got some great partners. So if you're listening to Real Estate with Ryan, make sure you check us out. News Talk, 98.7, 1 o'clock, one of our great partners there. Appreciate the support for the years. Talk Radio, 92.3 FM, AM 760, Facebook, X, YouTube. We're there. All your channels like iTunes and Google, we're covered there. So in case you miss it, Real Estate with Ryan, we have a good time. Follow us, like and share. We've got a great show for you. We'll try to have fun on it. Look, so on the housing market, but before we get going, it's fall action. Softball, men's baseball, football is right around the corner. Let's go 60-second drum roll. We'll make it quick. All right, 60-second drum roll. A lot going on. Ladies looking hot the other day. Softball. Now they're going to be playing Texas Tech. Big time. Today, 3:30. Let's root on our Lady Vols as we're rooting them on for a championship. I can see it. One of the stats that my accountant just gave me, and we were talking before going on the show, he said, Ryan, 90% that win that first game go to the championship and win it all. Well, we're rooting big for our Lady Vols. Carla and the whole crew over there, we're counting on you guys. Men in action, East Carolina, starting that series, go and root our men on. And as always, if you watched our posts, I know we're not going to have a whole lot of movement on this in time-wise, but watch our Facebook post, our social post. We're giving away autographed baseballs by Landon Mack and some swag by the University of Tennessee. So make sure you like, share, and post and comment so that we can pick you to win. And we're going to do that as far as the end of the men's baseball season. So hopefully that wins with a championship for both men and women. And that is our Vol update. Hometown Realty, proud sponsor of the Vols. Go Big Orange. So getting back into our show, we're talking about inventory and moving every 2 years. We know that comes into play, and there's a lot of things that come into play for that. Inventory has been rising for 4 years. It's not a surprise. So we know 2021, 2022, we watched that as the rates were increasing to 8%. But what is the market really doing? Will it get better? I think, there's news here, and we can watch the news. We can watch who's the Fed chair, and is there a peace deal on the table? You got to watch all that because at some point we can't control what we can control. You may ask yourself, this is probably the biggest question that we probably don't cover is, can I still live where I am right now? And can I make it work? And if that answer is no, it may be worth having a conversation to see what looking like a new purchase today, despite the rates. Really in this kind of market, it's where some people are pulling back. And as a buyer, you probably never had a better opportunity to have a little negotiating. The last couple of years has not been kind for our sellers. For our buyers. And now there's an opportunity where the market is, it's not depressed, but there's a challenge. There's a change. And real estate goes in cycles. I've been doing this for going on 28 years. Hard to believe it. And the cycles come up and they go down. And unlike the stock market, the real estate market, it takes cycles, 6 months to 12 months to reflect what happened last year. It's not as quick. But in the buying in the peak season, spring and summer, you can affect it the most, right? You did a survey that 31% of agents across the country are seeing homes set on the market at least 6 weeks longer than they expected. So life changes, priorities change, families grow, kids move out, and eventually you can't wait for the rates to drop a quarter of the point, right? You got to really look at where we're at today, and does that make sense on affordability? Experts say, which I say experts say loosely, right, that they're not expecting the rates to be anywhere below 6 by the end of the year, or maybe low. But who really knows, But we do know that a lot of our lenders are offering opportunities to refi later. And I say refi, that doesn't mean you say, well, Ryan, you refi later, you're going to pay a whole lot more closing cost. And you're right. You don't just want to refi, but you can recast a loan, and get a lower rate and readjust the payment. You have to put a little bit down. Talk to your lender. That's a great question before we purchase. If I'm making a purchase with Chase or whatever the banks, could be TVA, our local branch here. What's the requirement? So let's say, okay, I purchased now and it's a quarter point or a half point where I really want to be. And I've got a little money where I'm going to sell my house, but I can purchase now, or I've got some savings that I could put in to recast it. That makes sense. You're not going to have any closing cost. You found the property that you wanted, and you purchased at an opportunity where it was a buyer's opportunity that you got a little more negotiating power on the purchase, right? I'm seeing today in the market that we're seeing buyers have a home to sell. And one of the challenges in today's market is that you got a home to sell, but you're not prepared having your home to sell. And I think one of the biggest things that you can do in today's housing market, and it's easy to get going looking at property. And we've got a couple coming in from Michigan here, but is really starting that domino effect. In today's housing market, to get the best opportunity, I want to make sure that we have our home, make sure the pricing is where we want to be. If I'm out of state in Michigan, I've got a great agent in Michigan that's going to help me. I'm going to work with Ryan and their team to kind of work together. We talk about that teamwork. Makes a big difference in today's market. I always say teamwork for the dream work, right? To make the dream work, right? But if you don't have great teamwork and you're just trying to do it on your own, and you're going around looking at Zillow listings, and listen, we have it as well. Buyers looking around and, I don't have an agent, and I'm going to do it myself. And that's an opportunity. Hey, listen, it's important, but it may cost you a lot of money in the process. So team up, get the right team that can help you make this move from, buying and selling in this area, to make it seamless. The affordability factor, it's not going to change right this second. Recent volatility in the mortgage interest rates are pretty sharp contrast where we've been, and the window closes fairly early. In the first quarter of this year, we saw rates drop right before the war. And if you can remember that, they were under 6%. So we saw a spike in inventory and a spike in sales. And since then, they've been going upper in the high sixes, 6, 7, something like that. It's possible, but all this geopolitical plays out and it gets worked out, that we may see pressure down. But with inflation going on, it's hard to say that you've got a $100 barrel of oil and not to expect inflation. Unfortunately, that means, you know what that means, they're going to be higher bond rates, higher mortgage rates. So keep that in mind, that we're not all good, not all negative, I'm sorry. There's a lot of positive that people aren't talking about. In East Tennessee, our unemployment rate is extremely low, less than 3 or 4%. The Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta recently talked about wages are increasing 4% per year, and that the average home price is 2%. So getting into home ownership, doing that now versus waiting is key. Existing home sales have held steady. And so it's safe to say that, as I was telling a client today, the $400,000 house is not dropping to $350,000. It's just not, especially here in the Knoxville housing market. So keep that in mind when you're making that decision. If there's anything in the world we can do for you, and it's an easy call, easy number, just reach out to us. Let's talk about our veterans coming out of Memorial Day, what you've done for our country. So important, and all your sacrifice. Let's talk about using your VA loan, whether you're past or present. 49% of home ownership is out there in reach. A lot of our veterans are not educated, or people are not helping our veterans where they need to be helped. So we do a lot of VA loans. We've helped a lot of veterans in past. Just the key things to talk about before we get out of here is that a couple years ago, I think I probably have one of the largest VA loans in Tennessee on record. It was $2.5, $3 million in that range. And President Trump changed the guidelines on the sales price. It used to be VA loans were restricted to, in this area, 6 to 7 to 800,000, but now there really is no limit. You know, the positives of a VA loan in today's market is you don't have to put any money down. And so that's an opportunity now, that savings of no 10 or 20% down. VA has lower closing costs, so a lot of different incentives or junk fees or fees that the lenders are charging, you won't have to pay with a VA loan. You know, your monthly PMI cost, you know, a lot of loans, even FHA now, you put 20% down, they're going to still keep the PMI. Well, you pay your PMI at the end of top of the loan with VA, so that may be some benefits. It's not in your monthly payment, okay? Just remember on your VA that your housing eligibility and your allowance for substance can count for you. It's non-taxable and may help you qualify more for a larger home in today's market. I hope you've enjoyed this show. Always love spending time with you. Follow us on social media, and if there's anything in the world we can do for you, we'll be here and help you. See you back next week, and have an amazing weekend.